One of the hottest topics and one of the most misunderstood topics in fitness today is fatigue. So I'm going to talk about what fatigue is, what it comes from, and how to manage it, so that way you can continue to get effective gains as frequently and as much as possible without getting injured or hitting plateaus. Essentially what fatigue is the buildup of stress and the lack of recovery built over time, which starts to impede your ability to progress. Fatigue can come in many different ways. When we look in the realm of bodybuilding and muscle building, fatigue is essentially going to be nervous system fatigue. So you have systemic and you have peripheral and you have central. Let's focus on the central and peripheral. The central nervous system is the main communication line within the body that tells your muscles, and among other things, what to do and when to do it. Peripheral or localized fatigue is going to be specific to an area or muscle group, hence the name. So when we look at both of these things, we need to realize that both come into play into what our fatigue load is and how we can better recover. If we are experiencing excessive fatigue within the nervous system, whether that's systemic, central, localized, or peripheral, it is going to hamper our ability to not just obviously recover, but to progress, build muscle, and strength. If I were to say that there's any limiting factor in somebody's success, it is going to be how you manage fatigue. Fatigue is going to be the one thing that you cannot overcome with anything other than time usually. Now we'll talk about some ways that you can overcome fatigue, either through nutrition, lifestyle habits, supplementation. But the general idea is if we just can never fatigue, then we would always continue to grow at a faster rate. So if we look at the hierarchy of recovery, fatigue is going to be the most limiting. You can look at nutrition as the next. Right? So if you don't have enough nutrition to feed the muscle building process and recover, it's going to take longer to do that. But let's say our nutrition is optimal. We are able to recover the muscles, right? But the central nervous system or the nervous system in general is not able to. That is where the cap becomes. There's no amount of nutrition that can recover the nervous system faster other than time. Now, what does the nervous system do? Essentially, it starts with the brain or the spinal cord, right? That central nervous system piece spreads and sends signals out to the muscles to do certain actions. So when I'm doing a bicep curl, I think about that. Either I think about it or it happens subconsciously, but a signal is sent to the bicep. Again, there's smaller proteins within the muscle that at that deeper level act on each other to create that muscle contraction, but to keep things very simple, I want to pick something up. My brain tells the bicep to contract, to shorten, right, to lift my forearm to bring my hand closer. Now, that takes action potential and that takes resources to be able to do. There are a finite amount of neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and others that can be used to do that. So one part of fatigue is running out of those neurotransmitters, or we use so many that we're not able to recover fast enough to keep it going. And it takes time to recover that. Another piece of the fatigue is the buildup of calcium ions from those contractions, and it takes time for the body to, again, allow that to recover. So that's why if you think about it in this way, have you ever studied extremely hard for an exam or for finals or something like that, and just for whatever reason you studied so long and so hard that you just couldn't think straight anymore? It's exactly that. Now, when we talk about weight training, it's going to be in a physical aspect, but you can think of the mental aspect as the same thing. You can still fatigue without doing anything physical, right? Because it's not the muscle that gets fatigued or that takes a longer time to recover. It's going to be that neural firing, the nervous system, which is going to require much more time to do that. So in a nutshell, what is the basic point that I'm trying to drive home? We all look at how we feel soreness and are recovering from soreness and how the muscles are as an idea of when it's okay to train again. But that gives you a false sense of security, because if your nervous system is not able to fully recover, you're not going to be able to progress and be able to optimally perform the next session. Let's look at it at another example. If you were to max out your bench press every single day, do you think you're going to increase your max bench? You're not, because the amount of load on the muscle when you max a bench press or any lift is going to be high on the muscle. The tendons as well and the ligaments and the bone structure is going to take a big hit, but it's also extremely fatiguing neurologically, because so many signals are fired out to all those muscles to maximally contract to be able to move that weight. That starts to deplete the neurotransmitters and the supply of resources that the nervous system has over time. Versus like doing a 10 rep set of bench press right, to failure or so is not going to be as taxing as going all out maximal effort as strong as you can. We can go into a little bit more detail in another video of how like a max lift versus a set to failure works as far as the central nervous system and peripheral fatigue is concerned. But essentially the point that I'm trying to drive home is that there are other factors incorporated in your recovery and fatigue buildup accumulation that are not necessarily the muscle being sore or lactic acid accumulation. Why this is important is it emphasizes the need for recovery and rest. Essentially, at the crux of it, the only way that you're going to recover from nervous system fatigue and fatigue in general is going to be time. It's kind of like alcohol. Sure, you can hydrate more, you can change some aspects of your nutrition, but ultimately, what's going to be the ultimate factor of when you're sober is going to be time and your body's ability to metabolize that alcohol. And you can't rush that with any cocktail or raw egg smoothie or whatever it may be. Okay, you can try to ingest supplementation or increase the amount of nutrition, but ultimately, time and the metabolism what it's going to take. The same thing happens with the central nervous system and fatigue. You can try to take supplementation to help supplement those neurotransmitters. You can start to increase the amount of nutrition. You could do, more foam rolling and stretching and all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, what it's going to take is time. And you can shorten that time very sparingly by doing those sorts of things. But ultimately, if we were able to completely manage fatigue and wipe it away, then we could train 7 days a week, 3 times a day, and just grow endlessly if we were on steroids or eating food. So it's kind of that human factor of us that limits our ability to continue to grow like freaks. So hopefully that drove that home, and you have a better understanding of what fatigue is. Now, most people are getting to a higher point of fatigue, not so much because they're training so hard, but it's because they're training so long and doing so much extra crap that they don't need. And there's other life factors and stressors that are affecting them. 99.9% of people are not accumulating fatigue just from the intensity of their training and how hard they train and the stimulus being grown. That is what you want, because you want all the other pieces of fatigue things that could cause fatigue, like the life stressors, the familial stresses, the work stresses, the lack of sleep. You want those to be completely out of the way, so all your fatigue management and stress is related to the training, but most people aren't. That's why it's important to look at this. Again, this is slowly kind of inching in towards a conversation about stress, which is a little bit different, but can cause fatigue. But essentially, you want to mitigate the amount of fatigue and stress that you're getting from other areas, so everything can be focused on the weight training itself, and that allows you to recover faster and push harder, which again leads to more gains. If you liked this information, would like more information on both nutrition, training, and fitness, please subscribe to my channel. If you would like to know what it takes to work with me or my team one-on-one, feel free to fill out the application in my bio or reach out to me via direct message if I sent this video to you directly, and I'll know that if you send me the words "I'm in," that's the invite for me to go ahead and give you more information on what the next steps are.